next one is Verity by Colleen Hoover. I fell victim to book talk and read a lot of Colleen Hoover books, which you can see on my shelf. All of these are Colleen Hoover books, and I'm gonna be honest, some of them were pretty good and some of them were less than stellar. It just depends on what you're looking for in a book. I know she had a lot of controversy in the last year, but the ones that were less than stellar for me were just because it was almost like cheap writing. It just got really predictable. I don't like a predictable book because, again, it gets kind of boring after a while. I am really hard to please when it comes to books, to be fair. I have a very unique book taste. Okay, let's continue. This one was one that I heard about on a podcast that has since stopped production. The podcast was called Smells Like Humans, and it was a fairly small podcast out of Ohio. No, Portland. It was Portland, Oregon. It was one of those O states. And this book is about a woman and her journey. It's a memoir about a woman and her journey with breast cancer and grief and, a near-death experience, and how her life turned out after that. She's still alive to this day as far as I know. This is Please Don't Send Me Flowers by Leanne Saffer. The next one was one that I've shown you guys before, Adequate Yearly Progress. That was one of my half-price books, clearance section finds. That one is by Roxana Eldon. The next one is The Sweetheart Deal by Polly Dugan. I also did not finish that one. It was another one I picked up off the clearance shelf, and sometimes you just take a gamble when you pick things up off the clearance. It's not that it was a bad book. Again, it was just really predictable and wasn't really what I was looking for at that time. I always think that maybe the DNFs I'll pick up and finish reading on later. The next book I have is The Woman I Was Before by Carrie Fisher. It says USA Today best-selling author of The Silent Wife. I haven't read The Silent Wife. This book was alright. I would give it a solid 7, maybe a 6.5 out of 10. I don't really remember the plot all that much, but I do remember it getting kind of drawn out and cliche towards the end. And then, okay, this one I've brought up before in a previous video, The Tattooist of Auschwitz by Country Almanac of Home Remedies by Mars and Fiedler. My dad got me this book for Christmas one year because I am the world's biggest hypochondriac, and I am also often sick, so he got me that so that I can start trying things that are not going to the doctor every time I feel a little weird inside. I haven't given it a look in a couple of years, but I probably should because I'm starting to get desperate with migraine treatment right now. Okay. The First Year Teacher's Survival Guide is the next book there. My mom got me that book when I graduated. I only read a little bit of it, to be honest. I mean, okay, so the thing about teaching, hi Julian, the thing about teaching is when you become a teacher, you are so inundated with information that you have so many professional development books and things to choose from, and it can just be really overwhelming. So, truthfully, I haven't looked at that book yet, sorry mom, but I will someday. The next one is one of the very first gifts my boyfriend ever got me was this art book of Van Gogh paintings, and it sounds very nice. It's just kind of got the history of Van Gogh and all of his paintings. It's just kind of got all of the paintings and the history about Van Gogh in one book, which I think is really neat. Ryan got that for me because I love Van Gogh. He's my favorite artist. Let me take you on a tour of my Van Gogh puzzles at some point. Okay, the next book I have down here is Humans by Brandon Stanton. If you didn't know, Brandon Stanton is the man responsible for the Humans of New York social media accounts that I love a vignette. One thing about me is I am an anthropologist at heart. I love a good story, just a human story. I want to read a vignette about a random person. Give me a quote. So I really like this book. That was another Christmas gift. The next thing I have is the Anxiety and Phobia workbook, because believe it or not, I do have a fair amount of anxiety. I've actually had that book since I was 16, 15, and have worked through quite a bit of it. I also have Channel Kindness, Stories of Kindness and Community, another kind of vignette type book. This one is by Lady Gaga. I got this one for free. My library was giving them away as part of the kindness movement a few years ago. Oh, this next book is kind of funny. So this next book is one that I wrote when I was in maybe second grade. Our teacher did one of those little book kits where you get to write and publish your own book. This actually might have been earlier, even it might have been kindergarten, I'm not sure. Let's see if it says on the inside. Oh my gosh, the binding is coming off. This book is really old. This, where does it say it? Creationsbyyou.com. I wonder if they're still the people who do this. This is where the book ends, I said. I started to run out of ideas toward the end. I'm gonna have to go through this book with you guys at some point. I don't know when I wrote it, but I could not have been more than 7 years old. Okay, I have a thesaurus, the well-spoken thesaurus. Another one of my boyfriend's books called The Prince. It looks like another philosophy book. 10,000 Dreams classes. I'm so proud